Hello again, this is the THP-Plus Participant Tracking System training for county representatives, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Sarah Kimberlin, and I am a research fellow at the John Burton Foundation, where I'm working on the THP-Plus statewide implementation project. I am very pleased to announce that the THP-Plus Participant Tracking System is now live. The system will be accessible to all approved users after they have completed a training, so either completing this webinar training or another one of the trainings that we're holding online and in person. This training is being provided as part of the John Burton Foundation's participation in the THP-Plus statewide implementation project. That project is a collaboration between the John Burton Foundation, the California Department of Social Services, and the Corporation for Supportive Housing. Our goal is to increase access to THP-Plus through training and technical assistance, advocacy, and evaluation. So today's web seminar focuses specifically on the evaluation component of this project. I just want to go over a few of the technical details for those of us joining us live on the webinar. There's a call-in phone number for live audio, and the number is 773-945-1010. And then you'd need to enter the access code, which is 343-851-016. Once you're logged in, you'll have an audio pin that will show up on your screen, so then you can enter that pin so that you'll be able to hear the audio. You also have the option of listening to the audio through your computer, so you can change that on the audio pane on your webinar taskbar, but calling in also works. And throughout the presentation, we will be accepting questions, so you can submit live questions by clicking on the question and answer arrow on your screen, and then you just type in the question and click send. We'll respond to some questions individually as they come in if they just apply to one person, and I will also be stopping twice during the presentation and once at the end of the presentation to answer questions that are more broadly applicable that more people would need to hear the answers to. So at any point that you have a question, please just go ahead and submit it and we'll get to it at the appropriate time. Just to go over what I'll be talking about today, I will first be going over the background of the THP-Plus participant tracking system. And I want to note, too, that this training is designed for county THP-Plus representatives. So for people who will be using the THP-Plus participant tracking system to review the data that is entered by their service providers. I know that some counties are also providing direct services. They have direct THP-Plus programs, and they will be entering data into the system for those participants in those direct service programs. I'm not today going to be talking about how to enter data, just how to review the data. So if you are one of the counties that is also a provider, there is an online webinar that you can download from our website that will be put up shortly that goes over that information, and we will also have additional trainings coming up in person for several counties that will go over that information as well. If you have questions about that, again, please feel free to go ahead and submit an online question or contact us, and we'll be happy to go over that information in more detail. So in today's training, as I mentioned, we'll be going over the background of the THP-Plus participant tracking system, looking at the features of the system and who can use the system. We'll also talk about the steps that are required to get started, including use agreements and login information and training opportunities. We'll talk about the data entry timeline, as this would apply to the people who are entering the data. So in most counties, those are the contracted service providers that are entering the data. And then we'll do a walkthrough of the actual online database so you can get a sense of how to navigate through the database and what kinds of information are available in there. We'll talk about the summary reports, which are the module that is going to be introduced within the next couple of weeks, and then talk about the training and support that's available for the database. And again, we'll be taking questions at a couple of different points through the presentation and at the end, so please go ahead and submit those. And I wanted to mention also that I am also joined today by Josh Senyak, who is the president of Quicksilver Consulting, which is the firm that the consultant who developed the participant tracking system, the software developer. And Josh has nearly 20 years of experience working with nonprofit and public agencies to develop customized databases. And he will be speaking in a little bit just about the security features of the system, and he will also be available if we have questions. So we'll get to that. So let's go ahead and get started. just to go over briefly the background of the THP-Plus participant tracking system. This system was developed because it was recognized that there was a need for a statewide data system to measure the effectiveness of THP-Plus programs, both for the purposes of self-evaluation and also to demonstrate the important impact of this program across the state to help encourage continued support and funding for the program. And in this project, John Burton Foundation is a partner with the California Department of Social Services and the Corporation for Supportive Housing as part of the overall THP-Plus statewide implementation project. And we're interested in making sure that the THP-Plus programs are of the highest quality and are helping to meet the needs of the young adult participants. So this system grew out of a recognition that doing that really requires having data to be able to measure the effectiveness of THP-Plus programs. In an effort to be able to compare this data with other data collected about the population of former foster youth who are now young adults, we pulled certain data elements from several different sources, including the new At Emancipation report, or the SOC 405A, the ILP narrative report, elements from the Chafee data collection, and the California Connected by 25 initiative database, and that will ensure that the information that comes out of this THP-Plus participant tracking system can then be compared to those other data sources to be able to see how the THP-Plus population is doing relative to for example, all young people who are emancipating from foster care in California or nationwide or who are participating in CC25I. So, and this system was designed in close consultation with CDSS, counties, and providers. We shared the data elements with all 3 stakeholder groups and incorporated their input throughout the process. And also, I just want to mention that we are definitely open to ongoing improvements to this system. So as you are starting to use this system, we encourage you to submit your questions and comments and ideas for improvements. And at the end of the 3rd quarter of this year, we will be looking at all of those suggestions and determining which improvements can be incorporated. And we are also working with the Department of Social Services to eventually transfer the systems to CDSS administration is the goal. Now I'd like to talk about some of the features of the participant tracking system. This is a web-based database, and it collects participant-level data at program entrance, at quarterly intervals, at program exit, and 6 and 12 months after the participant has exited the program. It's both demographic information, so basic sort of descriptive information, as well as outcome information about things like employment and education, those kinds of things. And this system is free for all approved users. In terms of who can use the system, it's available to certified THP-Plus providers. And it's also available to all THP-Plus counties, or all counties with THP-Plus programs. In addition, many counties are requiring their service providers to use the system as part of their THP-Plus contracts, and will be using some of the outcome data and reports as part of meeting the contract obligations. If in the case where the counties are not requiring that the providers use the system, THP-Plus providers are certainly welcome to use the system. So we encourage counties and providers to work together so that the data can be reviewed by both parties, but where our ultimate goal is just to make the system as available as possible to anyone who can benefit from it. I also want to mention that counties that are participating in family-to-family and are able to track the same information in the Efforts to Outcome database using the assessments for the California Connected by 25 initiative. So if you are a family-to-family county and you are already using ETO and you want to use the CC25I reports instead, that will collect the same type of information. That information from the CC25I system will then be exported and combined with the information from this THP-Plus participant tracking system so that we can analyze the data across both systems to have statewide information. And there's been a lot of really strong interest throughout the state in this statewide data collection effort. Right now there are over 30 counties representing over 1,100 annual THP-Plus participants whose information will be collected in either this THP-Plus participant tracking system or in the ETO system, so that all of that information will be able to be compiled together to capture a statewide picture of the program. And I just really want to emphasize that statewide participation is really critical, both to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of the program and also to be able to really demonstrate in concrete terms the important impact that this program has throughout the state. And with the ongoing budget problems at the state level, being able to demonstrate a concrete impact for the program continues to be very important to make sure that we can maintain support for the program. So getting started. The steps that are required for counties to be able to use the system, this is true for providers to be able to use the system as well. A use agreement must be signed and returned to the John Burton Foundation. The purpose of that is to make sure that we all are in agreement about confidentiality, meeting confidentiality requirements and those kinds of things. Users also must participate in either a web training like the one we're doing right now or in an in-person training. We're offering some of those throughout the state in the next couple of weeks. And that's just to make sure that people fully understand and have been oriented on the system. And then once those two requirements have been met, counties and providers will receive one password-protected login per agency. And that will be distributed by email to the primary contact person for THP-Plus at that county, or to the primary contact for that service provider. And at this point, we're going to talk a little bit about the security and privacy features of the THP-Plus participant tracking system. And I am going to turn this over to our database developer, Josh Senyak of Quicksilver Consulting. And I just want to mention all of you who are listening live right now will be able to hear Josh. Those of you who are downloading this webinar at a later point from our website may not be able to hear this audio portion very clearly just for the next two slides, but the information will be visible on the slides as well. So let me hand it over to Josh.
I'm going to keep on talking with the assumption that the connection is being made. I am Josh Senyak, and I work very closely with the great team at the John Burton Foundation to make sure that the website that you're about to see actually met the user interface goals and very closely match the paper forms that you've all been using and will use in the future. I'm not going to talk about those. The only thing I want to talk about right now are the security and privacy features, because those are sort of a more technical aspect of the things. I just want to make sure that people feel very comfortable about how the security features work, and that we've thought these through very carefully. So the system does not collect social security number, driver's license number, address, phone, email of the participants. However, it does collect the name, date of birth, and a few other features, data points that need to be protected as confidential participant information. So the following features are there to make sure that that information really remains only to people who do have authorization to see them. The first feature that protects that is the logins. The system is not available to the general public. It's only available to those users who have a valid login and password. If there is any problem with passwords, for example, if somebody leaves position with a county or the agency is no longer authorized to view the information, the passwords can be very easily reset so that only good users, only legitimate users are able to look at them. The system assigns permissions according to the user type, that is, whether it's a county provider, a service provider. What that means is that a user from within a county can only see the participants for that county. I should also say, cannot change that information, may only view that information. Users from a given service provider agency may only look at the data and change the data for participants from that service provider. So it's not true that anybody who uses this can see all the data in there. It is segregated by function and by county and service provider. As another security feature, the system will actually remove sessions that have been open too long. So it's possible if you use the system, particularly when it's being used by a number of users, you may find that after 25 minutes or so of leaving the system, you change the pages, you may come back and find that you need to log on again because you've been logged off. And by the way, we'll point out, please don't do that if you're not going to use the system for an extent of time, as Sarah will tell later on. Please do log off, given the log off links provided. Another security feature is the HTTPS protocol. As you view the system through a browser, you'll see that familiar lock that you may have noticed if you use a credit card on the web or, say, banking functions. You will see the lock that indicates that. What that means, the HTTPS protocol assures that the data is actually encrypted as it moves between the server and your browser. You won't notice it. It looks perfectly normal to you, but if anybody were to try to hijack that information in transit, they wouldn't be able to read it. It would be encrypted information and unreadable. I do have to mention, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think there's going to be I don't think there's a great commercial demand for this information. We wanted to make sure that we had over-engineered the system so that really to make sure that there was no easy way to get this system. If somebody were to try and steal this information or view it in an unauthorized way, the website would not be the way they would go. We're trying to make that the most difficult way. I think those are all the points I wanted to make about the technical aspects of the web site and how it protects participant information. Sarah will talk in a minute about the user safeguards and the things that the users need to do to ensure that those features are used to the best of your abilities. If there are any questions about the technical aspects, those can be submitted during this web seminar, or to me. There are links on the system to get to Quicksilver Consulting. I'm happy to answer any questions that people have about the technical specifications. So Sarah, I'm going to turn this back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Josh. And as Josh mentioned, if you have questions that are specifically about the technical aspects of the system or about the security specifically, please go ahead and submit those now, or you're welcome to contact us afterwards, and we will either respond to the questions during this web seminar or afterwards, depending on when we receive the questions. So thanks again, Josh. And now I do want to go on and, as Josh mentioned, talk about the user safeguard. So as Josh talked about, there are a number of security features that are built into the technical design of the THP-Plus participant tracking system. However, making sure that the information in that system stays secure is also a responsibility of the users of the system. So some things that users need to be sure to be responsible about are, one, maintaining the secrecy of the login and password. Making sure that information isn't, for example, posted on a bulletin board or something like that, but that it's really only distributed to people who legitimately have a reason to access the system and it's kept secure. Also being sure to log off when your session is complete, so when you're done using the database, logging off so that someone can't sort of walk by and be able to view the data. And also keeping the computers on which you'll be accessing the system updated with current antivirus software and regular software updates and security patches, just to make sure that those basic background safeguards are in place. And again, in order to maintain the secrecy of the login and password, you would need to let us know if someone from your agency leaves the agency who had access to login and password. Just contact us and we'll be happy to reset the password. That's very easy for us to do, and that way we can ensure that only authorized people have the information required to enter into the database and see the data. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about the user access levels. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there are two basic access levels. There's the service provider access, and this is read-write access for participant data. So this is an individual service provider can log into the system and then can enter data and review data only for the participants that they're actually serving in their particular program. And this is also the access level that will be used by counties that provide direct services. So if a county operates a host family program directly, for example, then they will get a login that is at the service provider user level so that they'll be able to actually enter data for those host family participants. Then the other access level is the county access level, and this is read-only access to data for the participants that are served by all of the contracted providers for that county. So, for example, if a county has 3 different service providers and each of them is entering data into the tracking system, then the county will be able to log in and look at the data for the participants in each of those 3 programs. However, the county representative logging in can only review the information. They won't be able to actually change the information. And the purpose of doing that was just to maintain data integrity so that we know exactly who is modifying the data for each set of participants. And I will, when we do the demo of the database, you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly how this works. And again, the training today is focusing on the county access level. However, we do have a webinar that's available that's about the service provider or data entry access level. And that's available, and we'll also be conducting some other trainings in upcoming trainings in person. And if you have questions about the data entry access level, please feel free to let us know, and we'll follow up with you. And after this training has been completed, each agency will receive a login and password. And again, this login and password will be sent via email to the primary contact person for THP-Plus at your county. Now, I want to go over the data collection, and again, because we're focusing on the county access level, or people who will be just reviewing data that's entered by service providers, I'm just going over this basically so that you have the information about what service providers are expected to do in order to have data in this database system that is accurate, and also so you know what kind of information is available to you to review in the system. So data collection for this for the system is supposed to be collected by case managers in conversation with youth participants. So ideally, the case manager will sit down with the youth participant during one of their case management meetings and go over the information that's required to be entered into the system. There's 2 ways of doing this. It can be collected on paper forms, which have been made available to providers, and will be posted on our website as well. And then that information can be transferred into the online system. Or the information can be entered directly into the system. As the case manager, for example, sits with the young person, they can enter the information into their computer as they're sitting there. I want to emphasize that the information needs to be entered by program staff and not by the young people participating in THP-Plus themselves. We don't want to distribute the user, the login, and the passwords to all participants and have them enter the information directly, because we want to maintain the security of those logins and passwords and make sure that they're limited to the smallest number of authorized users as possible. And to go over the sample data entry timeline, so if we consider a hypothetical THP-Plus participant, say Amanda Jones, if Amanda entered THP-Plus in July of 2008, at that point the service provider would create an entrance form for Amanda, which collected the information about the point in time when she entered the program. That would be her basic demographic information and information about, what did her employment status look like at that point in time? What was her educational status at that point in time? Those kinds of questions. Then the next data collection that would take place would be at the end of the quarter. That would be the quarterly update form, which is a briefer form that just updates all that information for the point in time at the end of the quarter. So that would be at the end of September, with the data entry to be completed by 15 days later, so by October 15th. And again, those quarterly updates just continue on the regular schedule according to the fiscal year. So at the end of the next quarter, so by December 31st, with the data entered by January 15th, I would collect the information about what Amanda's status looked like at the end of the quarter on December 31st, and again on March 31st, and again on June 30th. And again, all of these forms are identical and are basically updating the information that was entered at the entrance. And then let's say Amanda exits in September of 2009. At that point, the service provider would complete an exit form, which again just goes through very similar questions, just updating, what progress has Amanda made during her time in the program, and where is she going after she leaves THP-Plus. Then 6 months after she exits, so that would be in March of 2010, the service provider would complete a 6-month follow-up form. And then 6 months after that, there would be the 12-month follow-up form completed. And again, these update similar kinds of information just to see what's the status of Amanda in terms of all these different areas 6 months and 12 months after she leaves the program. And so what this allows us to do is to look at changes between entrance and exit, as well as changes between exit and follow-up to see what kinds of progress are being made in terms of education, employment, wages, and those kinds of things over that period of time. And then the quarterly update forms serve a different purpose. Those forms allow us, since those forms are collected on all participants on the same date, that allows us to get a nice snapshot of the program at those different dates so that we then can say, well, at the end of this quarter, there were this many participants in THP+, and this is what they looked like in terms of age and ethnicity and employment status and where they had come from before THP+, and those kinds of things. And again, data entry is to be completed by the service providers by the 15th of the month after the end of the quarter. So as I mentioned, information is inside in this database is based on the point in time of whatever form is being entered. So that could be program enrollment, end of the quarter, program exit, or follow-up. And the quarterly reporting dates are, again, September 30th, December 31st, March 31st, and June 30th. And for all of these, the data entry needs to be completed by 15 days after that date. So before, I'm next going to move into the demo of the online database. But before I move into that, I just want to take a brief moment, about 5 minutes or so, to answer any questions that may have come up that are specifically about the information we've covered so far. So the system overview, the process of data collection, the security features, or anything else that people have questions about before we move on to looking at the actual online database. Can we address that with her afterwards? Yeah. Okay. A made-up one. Oh, yeah. Okay, just one question we've got here is the county, we're interested in using the system, but we haven't returned the use agreement yet. So is it too late to sign up? And no, it's not too late to sign up, but you do need to return the use agreement before you can be given a login and password for the system. So, and if you need a copy, you should have received a copy of the use agreement, but if you need a new copy, you can contact us at the John Burton Foundation. We're happy to provide that. I have another question here. Can a county representative go ahead and enter the data directly instead of having a service provider enter it? That is certainly an option. Most counties are choosing to ask their service providers to enter the data because it shares the workload a little bit more. But it is an option if you prefer to enter the data yourself. You certainly can. In that case, you would need to get a service provider, a data entry login as well as a county login. So again, if that's something you're interested in doing, just contact us and we'll be happy to help you set that up. Any questions? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do now then is actually go and log into the system so that we can see how this system actually looks like. So you'll see this is the basic login screen for the THP-Plus participant tracking system. You'll notice the web address up at the top here is HTTPS, for that's what indicates the secure socket layer security feature, and then www.thpplusdata.org. And once you get to that system, you will have received your login and password. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in here. Oops. Great. And you'll notice here we are on the main menu screen. You'll notice it indicates that my login name and that I am a representative of Alpine County. All of the information I'll be showing you is fictional. Actually, Alpine County doesn't currently have a THP-Plus program, so this is all just invented participants and other information. And I just want to point out a few things on this basic main menu screen, just to orient you to the basic navigation. You'll notice over here on the right side there are 3 links. So there's the log off, and again, it's important to click that when you're done using the system so that other people will not be able to access the system on that computer. This main menu link always brings you back to this screen. So from anywhere in the system that you end up, if you are unsure, you will always be able to get back to the main menu from here. And there's also a Get Help button on every screen, and this shows information specific to that screen. So this is especially useful for people who are entering data because it explains exactly, how to answer specific questions on different forms and those kinds of things. But if at any point you have a question or something is a little bit confusing on the screen, go ahead and push the Get Help button, and a window will pop up that has really detailed information about that screen. And you'll notice here also this indicates Alpine County. So if you're one of the counties that is also a direct provider and you have a data entry login as well, that'll show a different, that would show a different name here, so you can be able to tell which user you're logged in as, or which login you're using, so that you know if you're using the right one for entering data or for just reviewing data. So let's go over how we would look for a THP-Plus participant in the system. So we're going to go to this link, find a participant record. Now, as a county user, you have the option of searching a couple of different ways. So if you know which service provider this young person has been served by, or if you're looking for young people who are at a particular service provider, you can click on this button and it'll show all of the contracted service providers that are currently authorized to enter data into the system who have contracts with your county. So we have 2 fictional providers in here. Let's just say youth services, or youth services. Now there's 2 different ways you can look for a participant. You can, if you just leave this blank and click enter, then you will, click go, then you will see all of the participants for that provider that are currently entered into the system. Just see what that looks like. So now we can see, in Alpine County with the Youth Services Inc. service provider, there's 1 participant who's entered in there, Antonio Jimenez. But let's say we want to go back and say we want to look at all of the providers in Alpine House. We can look at those. And there are 3 different participants who are being served by Alpine House that have been entered into the system. And I just wanted to go back to and show you that if you don't know where the young person is being served, or if you want to just see all of the participants, you can just leave the service provider field blank. That will show every participant that's in the system for Alpine County, and you can see over here which service provider is serving them. And if you know more specifically, like let's say we're looking for Amanda Jones, so we know her last name. Maybe we're not, we could write in the full name Jones, but maybe we're not exactly sure how to spell it, or we're not sure if it was spelled correctly when it was entered, so we're just going to enter J, and that will come up with all of the individuals whose name starts with J. And we know Amanda was served at Alpine House, so we're going to go ahead and limit it to Alpine House and look for her this way. We see there's 2 participants whose names start with J at Alpine House, and there's Amanda Jones. So let's go ahead and look at her record. I'm going to go over some of these screens here just to show you what kinds of information is available in the database about participants, just so you know what kind of information might be useful to you in your work, and what you're able to monitor with the THP-Plus providers. This is the participant level information, so we're looking at the information right now about 1 specific participant. Information is also going to be available in a more aggregated form in reports, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for right now, we're going to go over the specific forms for a particular participant. I'm not going to go over these in great detail because, again, this would just be for, this is targeted at county representatives that will be reviewing the information rather than entering it. But we'll just walk through some of the forms so you can see what kind of information is in here. And those of you who have seen the paper-based forms, this information should look very similar because the forms are identical to the paper-based information as well. So right now we're on the participant overview form. You'll notice at the top here it says read only. And again, as a county user, you can review all of this information. You can only see information that's for participants who are being served by your service providers who are contracted with your county. And you can't change the information. So you can look at it. You can actually even click on these fields and type things in it, but your changes can't be saved. So this is just allows you to look at the information. So on the participant overview, we have basic information, like name, a birth date, county of jurisdiction at emancipation, gender, LGBTQ status. For all of these, there are multiple options, and if you want to see what are the other options that could have been selected, you can click on the down arrows and see what other options there were. So she's female, but there are these other options that could have been selected. The race and ethnicity information is based on the census categories. So again, first, the case manager asks the participant if they are Hispanic or Latino ethnicity, and they indicate yes or no or unknown. And then they select all of the different races that the participant self-identifies as. So in this case, Amanda Jones identified herself as Black or African American. And so this is the basic information that doesn't tend to change over time for Amanda. And let's go in here too, and we can see more information that's been input into the system for Amanda. So again, we'll see at the top here, Amanda's name, date of birth, THP-Plus enrollment date, THP-Plus exit date, just to make sure you're looking at the person you think you're looking at. And then these are the different forms that have been entered for Amanda. So let's go ahead and look at the entrance form. Now this is the form that was entered by the service provider at the point in time when Amanda enrolled in the program, so when she started receiving services. That might be before she actually moved into housing, but it's basically the first, when Amanda first started receiving case management with the service provider. And so we can see there's a number of questions about demographic information, basic information like whether the participant has given birth to or fathered one or more children, whether the participant is a custodial parent. Then there's several questions about housing on the entrance form. So one question asks what type of housing the participant was living in immediately prior to THP+. You can see there's several different choices, different foster care choices, and then other non-foster care options like renting your own housing or living with a relative. In this case, Amanda was in an emergency shelter, so that option is selected. Then we ask whether the housing was subsidized, and again, because she was in a shelter, it's not applicable, but other answers are possible. And we have information about the county where she was living, whether she experienced homelessness, what type of housing model, whether the participant has the option of remaining in the same unit. So several different questions about that are very specific to THP+ here. And then we can continue on using either this tab or this button at the bottom here to look at what other information is in this entrance report. So there's some information about Amanda's employment and income. Amanda right now is seeking employment, but there's other options that are available if she had been employed full-time or part-time, for example. Since she's seeking employment, she has no wage, so that's 0, but a number could be entered in there. And there's information about public benefits, other types of financial support, total monthly income. And then if we continue on, we can see information about Amanda's education and training at the point in time when she entered the program. So Amanda has received her high school diploma, vocational training. She's this question is not applicable because she hasn't attended, but if she were attending, there are other choices you could select or could have been selected by the service provider. The same thing with other training, including military, Job Corps, AmeriCorps, those kinds of things. So that information is in there. And then finally, some additional information. And this is, again, all based on at the entrance to the THP+ program. Did Amanda have a checking account, savings account, or IDA? No, she did not. A question about health insurance. And then a question about involvement with the criminal justice system. So whether Amanda had ever been incarcerated or detained prior to entering the program. In this case, no. And whether she had any adult criminal convictions. In this case, she had none, but if she'd had a misdemeanor or felony conviction, that information would be entered right here. And then finally, whether Amanda reports a permanent connection with at least one adult for support, advice, and guidance, and she does, so that's great. I just want to show you, for example, you can pull this menu down and see other choices. You can even select another one like this, and it'll look like no. But because you are a read-only user, that information actually won't be saved. So if we go back to this screen, you'll see, in fact, it's still saved as yes, because that was information entered by the service provider, and you actually, as a read-only user, can't change any of the information in the system. Just want to make sure that's clear so that people don't misunderstand and think that they're able to make changes. The changes need to be made by the service provider so we can make sure that the data has really strong integrity so we get accurate information. I'm not going to go over the other forms in great detail, but I just want to give you a glance at what they look like, because there's other kinds of forms that are in here that you can see. So the quarterly update form is much more brief than the entrance form, so it just skips straight to employment income information. So we have one question about custodial parenting, and then again, you'll recognize these same questions about employment status, public benefits, other types of financial support, monthly income. Again, the purpose of this is just to update the information. So it's the same fields basically as the entrance report, just an update of what it looks like at the point of time of the end of the quarter. And we have the same, again, education and training questions. And then again, we have similar questions about checking accounts, health insurance, criminal justice involvement, and permanent connections. So again, it's a briefer form. Now the exit form, again, fairly basic information. It's a little more detailed than the quarterly form. So it asks about, more parenting questions. The housing questions at exit ask a few other things that are specific to exit, so like whether the exit was voluntary or involuntary, whether the participant is staying in the same housing unit, and what type of housing the participant is exiting into. So are they exiting into rental housing? Are they going to a different THP-Plus program? Where are they going? Whether that housing is subsidized and how much rent they'll be paying. And then these other questions about employment and income, again, these are the same questions just updated from the other forms, so about employment status, public benefits, financial support. Same thing with education and training, same questions, just updating the information. And then again, additional info. The same questions about checking accounts, health insurance, criminal justice, permanent connection. One of the things that's included on the exit report, so it's captured in the system, is some information about whether the participant is receiving services or treatment for a variety of special needs, so mental health, substance abuse, learning disabilities, developmental disabilities, physical disabilities. And that's the exit report. And again, Amanda actually has exited the program, so she already has a 6-month follow-up report. Of course, these are fictional clients and dates, but again, 6-month follow-up report again is similar to the exit report. I just wanted to give you a quick look at this to show you that it basically updates the information to see, has her status changed since she exited and in what ways. The same kinds of tabs: employment, income, education, training, additional information. So again, all very similar. And 6 months after this, a 12-month follow-up report would also be completed for Amanda. So, those are the basic types of forms that are in here for each of the participants. And so some participants will have all of these forms. Some of them will have fewer. Let's go back to the main menu, and I'll just do a quick show you someone who has fewer. Let's look at providers for youth services. We look at Antonio Jimenez. Here he is in here with the participant overview. If we go to his forms, we'll see he entered fairly recently, so he actually only has an entrance report at this point. You'll see here's his entrance report. You could tab through all of these other tabs. If we want to go back to the overview, we can use the link up here. And look again at his forms. But you'll see he doesn't have an exit report or follow-up reports or even quarterly reports yet. It's because he hasn't been in the program for very long. Just to give you a sense of how that works. So that's the basic overview of the forms and the participant level data. And I just want to stop right there and see if there are particular questions about how to navigate through the system and the different forms and the different fields on the different forms. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if there are questions for that. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and use the question and answer feature on your screen. Okay, we have a question here about how do county representatives know if the service providers in their county have completed the training and are able to enter their data, access the system. What you'll need to do then in that case is send an email to Michelle Burns with a list of your providers, and Michelle can confirm if they've participated or not. And if they haven't, the training will be available on our website at www.thp-plus.org. And we also have a few trainings coming up in various locations in the next week or so. So people are currently getting trained, and if you have questions about whether your providers have been trained or not, again, please feel free to contact Michelle. Oh, great. And another question I've just gotten is, can we get aggregate compiled data of all participants? And I'm glad that that question was asked because that's actually what I'm moving into next. So let's go ahead and talk about that. There are a number of aggregated reports that are available on the system, and I think this is one of the features that is going to be most useful to the county representatives. I know a lot of counties are planning to use some of these reports as part of their contracts with service providers to be able to look at summary information at the end of the quarter and at the end of the year for different providers, and to be able to compare that information across different programs. For that feature to work, we need to have data entered into the system yet, so we haven't rolled it out just yet. But when it is rolled out, you will be able to access that from the main menu using this reports button here. But I'm going to go back actually to the slides and talk about exactly what those report features are going to include. So the summary reports. As I mentioned, summary reports, we have a full module developed. It's going to be available for county and provider users by January 1st. And the same types of reports will be available for providers and for counties. The difference will be that county representatives will be able to run reports on all of the participants for all of their service providers, whereas a provider will only be able to look at reports that are for the participants that are in their individual program. There will be an online training about the reports that will be announced later this month. It's a very straightforward function to use, but we just want to make sure you have a chance to look at it closely and what information is in there and ask any questions you might have. So we'll be announcing a training. And again, as I mentioned, the reports are specific to the user access level. So at the county level, there's a number of different ways you'll be able to choose to run the reports. You can run it for all of the participants combined that are, say you have 3 service providers, you can run reports on all participants from all 3 service providers in one big report. Or you'll be able to run reports that are separate for each service provider if you prefer to look at the information in that way. So there are a few different ways you'll be able to look at it. And there will also be the option to export the data into a format that can be, if you have capacity to analyze the information, for example, in Excel or SPSS or something like that, then you can export the raw data and do further analysis on your own, which I know some counties are definitely interested in doing. So the types of information that are included in the summary reports, there's, again, basic descriptive data. So examples of some of the information in there would be age. So, how many 19-year-olds were served in the THP-Plus programs in your county, how many 24-year-olds, that kind of a thing. Parenting status, for example, what percentage of the participants were custodial parents or not. Housing model, how many participants were in a host family program versus in a scattered site model versus in a single site model. What type of housing prior to THP-Plus, broken down by percentage and by number. So, how many young people were coming straight out of foster care, how many people were coming from living in an apartment on their own, those kinds of different questions, and lots of different other ones as well. I've designed the reports to have really fairly comprehensive information about the descriptive data that's available in the database. And then there will also be outcome data. So this will look at changes in the participant status from entrance to exit, and then changes from exit to follow-up. So some of the examples of those kinds of changes would be things like the percentage of participants that showed improvement in employment status, the percentage of participants that showed improvement in educational status, the percentage of participants who had wages that went up, So those kinds of things and other indicators as well. So again, we'll be doing a complete training that's just about the reporting function in a few weeks. We just wanted to give you some information about what kind of information will be in there. And we'll need to have the database populated with the data from the first set of data entry before the reports will actually be able to produce anything meaningful. So that's coming soon. All right, so I want to talk about next steps, or what happens now that we're done. We're coming to the end of the training session. How do we move forward from here? So approved and trained users will receive a login and password via email, and again, that will be sent to the primary THP-Plus contact at your county. For service providers, it's being sent to the primary service provider contact. We will have a user manual online on our website at www.thpplus.org, which has more information, very detailed information about how to do the data entry and what the different screens mean and those kinds of things. Providers will be completing entrance forms for all participants who are enrolled as of September 30th, 2008. And we'll be continuing to complete entrance forms for all the as young people are coming into the program. They will be completing entrance reports from now on and entering that data in. And then the end of the current quarter will be December 31st, and that is when the first quarterly reports will be entered online into the database. So from January 1st to January 15th, providers will be completing quarterly forms for all of the participants that are currently participating in their programs. A lot of that information is just to give you information about what what information the providers should be entering into the system so that you know what you should be able to look at and review. And then finally, users both at the provider level and of course county users too, we'd really encourage you to provide us with ongoing feedback and suggestions as you navigate through the database and find things that you think work well or confusing, or other features that you think would be helpful. Just let us know, and we will be, as I said, compiling all the suggestions and looking at making some changes after we've had a period of time of people using it and seeing what works well and what needs to be changed. I also just want to mention what kinds of training and support are available for this system from the John Burton Foundation. So first, as I mentioned, on every screen in the database there is a Get Help option. So that's the first place to look if you're navigating through the database and find something that's confusing. Then there's also the user manual that will be on our website, so that will have even more detailed information about how to get through the database and use it. We'll also be compiling a frequently asked questions as we start receiving questions, as people start using the tracking system. So that's also going to be on the THP-Plus.org website. And finally, if none of those three options are able to answer your question, I mean, we're trying to be as comprehensive as possible in those three ways. But if there's other questions that just you still have not been able to find addressed, then you can contact us at the John Burton Foundation by phone or by email. Either Michelle Burns or Reed Connell are the two staff members who are most available to answer those types of questions. And staff is generally available Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It doesn't necessarily mean that that your response, you'll be able to get an immediate response, but our goal is to respond to you within about 24 hours if you contact us during the times when we're available, and hopefully sooner in many cases. So. And that concludes the slides and the presentation, but I do want to take the time. I know some people have questions, so we're now going to enter into a question and comment period. So again, if you have questions, please go ahead and use the question and answer arrow on your screen. Click on that arrow, type in your question, and click send. And we'll be going through those questions right now. If you think of a question later that you want to ask us, or you prefer to talk to us by phone or something after this webinar is over, you can direct your questions to Michelle Burns. Her contact information is right there on the screen, or Reed Connell, and his information is on the screen as well. So now I'm going to go look at what questions we have. Okay, a couple of questions have come in. So here, the first question, will we be doing another participant survey this spring, or will we be using data from this system to produce information for the THP-Plus annual report? So the answer to that is that we will be using the data from this system. And as I mentioned earlier, we have both data from this THP-Plus participant tracking system, as well as some counties that are ETO counties are entering their data into ETO instead. So we'll be compiling the information from those two systems and combining those for analysis of the statewide data, and that's the information we'll be using. So we will not be doing another participant survey in the spring. Okay, another question we had for programs that were already collecting information on paper forms, who will be entering that data from the paper forms into the online system? So service providers that completed the paper forms and returned them to the John Burton Foundation by the deadline of November 7th, that information will be entered by staff here at the John Burton Foundation into the online database. So some providers have mailed in their forms, and that information will be entered into the system at our office. If providers did not send us the forms by that date, or if they have new forms since that date, then the service providers will need to enter that data themselves into the database. And again, in order to complete the forms for participants, you have to have an entrance form entered into the system. So providers are going to need to make sure that those entrance forms are entered in order to be able to use the system to track the information. Anything else? Okay, that's what I was just talking about, but yeah. It's another question which I partly answered a moment ago, but should providers go through and create entrance forms for participants that entered entered the program prior to now? So maybe they entered in July, or they might have even entered last April, or they entered in October. If the young person is participating in THP Plus now and has been participating since during this quarter, then yes, they need to enter an entrance form. The entrance form is required in order to be able to enter the quarterly forms and the other exit forms and all those other forms that follow. So they'll need to collect that information and enter it into the online system. Okay, another question. What about if we have a young person who entered the program a while ago, and the service provider needs to create an entrance form, but they aren't sure about the answers to all of the questions on the form? In our experience, most service providers have case records that will have a lot of the information in there. So, but they may not have all the information if the young person entered before they started using this system or even the paper form. So in that case, what the service provider needs to do is just enter the information to the best of their ability, enter whatever information they have that's accurate, and on all of the items where that information might not be available, it's possible to leave those fields blank, and that just means that information won't be collected for that young person. So ideally, of course, we want the information to be as complete as possible, but especially as we're just getting started, we know there's going to be some cases where some of that early information may just not be available, and that's fine. Anything else? Great. So it looks like those are all the questions we have right now. Again, if you have questions that you come up with later, if you come up with further questions as you're beginning to use the system, please go ahead and contact us. There's Michelle's contact information as well as Reed's, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you and answer any questions. Again, I just want to thank all of you for participating in this web seminar, and of course for your commitment to participating in the statewide data collection process, since it's really important for ensuring the high quality of THP Plus, and also just demonstrating to a variety of stakeholders that this program really is important and has a vital impact on former foster youth in California. So thank you very much, and I will sign off now.